It's 1997. You're sailing from Honolulu to Santa Barbara when suddenly a hurricane takes you off course. After that, you begin to notice just objects floating in the water around you. When you take a closer look, it's trash. Congratulations, you just discovered the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Most people think of this garbage patch and visualize an island. It's more akin to a vortex. If you were to look underneath the surface of the water, you would see a whirlpool of plastic waste. This garbage patch was truly discovered by Captain Charles Moore, and he described it as plastic soup. It is twice the size of Texas, and it's only growing daily. To put in perspective, I want you to visualize a garbage truck dumping plastic into the ocean every minute. According to Winnie Lau, who has a doctorate in oceanography from the University of Washington and directs various plastic prevention programs, she states that there is an estimated 150 million metric tons of plastic waste in our oceans currently, and that is 11 million tons a year. And if we continue to do nothing to prevent it, that number will increase from 11 to 29 million metric tons in 2040. Plastic pollution and other marine debris are an ever-ongoing issue that has only been growing since the early 1960s. If action does not take place on a global scale, then all life on the planet will be harmed. During this speech, we will be covering the myths of plastic, the failures of recycling, effective recycling, and what the average consumer can do. At one point in our lives, we have all used disposable water bottles, plastic straws, or plastic containers. But have we ever stopped to consider what happens to this plastic after it served its purpose? A common myth is that plastic takes hundreds of years to break down. According to the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, this is true to an extent. Yes, it's true that the plastic does break down, but it breaks down into smaller and smaller molecules, creating nano or microplastics. These plastics average about 5 millimeters, or the size of a pencil eraser head. There's another form of microplastics called microbeads, which comes from body exfoliants or face washes, and these plastic beads skip through our water filtration system and end up directly into our oceans. So can recycling help? Well, according to a 2022 Greenpeace report, in 2021, U.S. households generated 51 million tons of plastic waste. Only 2.4 million tons of that waste was recycled. Why is it that only that amount was recycled? Well, certain characteristics such as the color of the plastic make it harder to recycle. There can be up to 10,000 different kinds of additives, and when that is placed into the wrong batch, it can ruin the entirety of it. If I live inland, does my waste affect the ocean? Well, according to Gianluca Ferrero, 80% of marine plastic litter comes from inland. This is due to overload or mismanagement of our waste disposal. And in the 1950s, we generated 2 million tons of plastic. Currently, we generated 450 million tons of plastic. So this graph demonstrates how 9% of plastic waste is recycled and 22% of that is mismanaged. This goes by country. This is the United States. You can see how most of our waste ends up in landfills, and the one on the bottom is the world, which also ends up the majority in landfills. As you can see, it's common to see mismanaged or it placed in landfills, while the recyclables are the lowest amounts on the graph. So how can we recycle better? Well, there's the extended producer responsibility, which targets the producers of plastic and places the tax upon them throughout the duration of the plastic's lifespan, even through the post-consumer stage. There is also deposit return system, which is found in Europe and commonly in Germany. So the plastic has a tax put onto it, which when taken to a deposit area, you get a return on this tax and compensation for the product. I also wanted to highlight California's Plastic Pollution and Packaging Producer Responsibility. This was signed into effect in 2022 by Governor Newsom, implementing EPR by holding the industry accountable. The law aims to sell 25% less single-use plastic packaging, make all plastic packaging compostable or recyclable, and recycle 65% of the state's plastic waste. The state also has a goal by 2026 to eliminate all plastic bags. While these steps are in the right direction, this is only taking effect in California. If we want to see change, we need laws like these on a global scale. This problem cannot be solved individually. Well, I will always say that limiting your consumption of plastic is a net positive. It just isn't enough. To attack the problem at its source, we need to implement legislation against big oil companies, for example, which produce 50% of the world's plastic waste. As consumers, we need to support biodegradable and sustainable options, as well as making these options more affordable to the average consumer, because living sustainably shouldn't be a privilege, it should be a standard. So in conclusion, please raise your hand if you agree that removing plastic from our ocean is important. If you agree to this, would you also pledge to limit and be more aware of the consumption of single-use plastics? If you can do that, I will ask of you to be an advocate, support legislation against single-use plastics and limiting the plastic producers. And remember, the real blame should be placed on the producers of single-use plastics, not the consumers. Thank you.